Your job, Mr. Business Owner, mom and dad, is to start a business, grow a business, involve your kids, and then give it to them for free.
Yep.
It's insane.
And friends, welcome back to the Justin Goodbread Show. I'm excited today. I have a special guest with me that I've heard speak from the stage a couple of times. And this individual, I have read his book probably a dozen times and given out 100 or so copies to business owners nationally and around the world. I keep an extra couple of copies in my briefcase when I travel, and I hear business owners asking some very simple yet profound questions. So I'm honored to have Dr. Tom Deans with me today. Tom, how are you, sir?
Fantastic. Great to join you.
Brother, I'm glad to have you here today. So if I'm not mistaken, you're in Canada. Is that correct?
I am, which is rare. I've spoken in 28 countries. I'm basically live on United. Yeah, I'm in the air a lot.
So United is your airplane, right? Mine's American.
They're all kind of interchangeable. Sometimes you just wake up in the air and it all feels the same.
So Tom, you and I meet at a coffee shop. We don't know each other from Adam's house cat. And I asked the question, who is Tom Deans? How would you answer that question?
I would say he's a public intellectual. I ran a large family business for 8 years as CEO. I only write and speak about that which I have lived, and I'd like to be known as a thought leader. And thought leaders push the boundaries of conventional wisdom. So we're not afraid because I'm not a consultant. I'm not looking to sell anything here. I write books and I speak full time. So 2,000 paid speeches in 28 countries. That's what I do. So contrarian, I'd be comfortable with that label. Controversial, I'd be okay with that one too. So basically, I live in the world of ideas. I write on the subject of family businesses and how they should transition. It's a big subject, getting bigger by the day.
One of the things I've always loved about you is, and you see this in your writings of your 3 books now. I think it's 3 books. Am I correct?
Correct. The trilogy is complete. I'm done.
Well, the 3 books that I've read of yours, I see that, as you just mentioned, you speak from this passion of having been there, done that. So I want to kind of unpack Tom Deans, the business proprietor, owner, manager, whatever your job was, and then how you've come to this particular point to be able to be this thought leader. I want to know what your story is, brother.
So I joined our family business. So first of all, I have a PhD. After that, I had a career in banking, joined a family business quite late, age 37, which is really late compared to most next gens who join their parents' business, typically right out of college, or maybe they work 1 or 2 places, but in their 20s are joining the family business with the expectation that they're going to continue it and run it. So I joined quite late with the knowledge that I'm probably going to sell it at some point. Our family culture is very different. So going right back to my great-grandfather who had a tire distribution business, my grandfather worked with my great-grandfather, didn't love the business, it was sold. My grandfather started a business with his inheritance, and my father worked in that business. He didn't love it. That business was sold. My father gets an inheritance. He starts a plastics company. That's the business that I joined. That's the business that I run. That's the business that we sell on February 8th, 2007. 4 times we've done this. I have a business now. I have 2 kids, married 34 years. Kids are 29 and 31. Justin, I've asked them if they want to buy my business. Guess what they've said?
No.
They've got their own ideas and they have access to our family money. So it's not like we don't transition wealth. We just don't transition operating businesses to our children for free. And that's the book I wrote. No one had written that book. Right. Everyone had written the other book. Right. Hundreds of them that said, your job, Mr. Business Owner, mom and dad, is to start a business, grow a business, involve your kids, and then give it to them for free.
Yep.
It's insane. It's insane when you look at the data. It destroys family relationships. It destroys family wealth. Only 30% of family businesses survive to the 2nd generation. They're crazy.
Well, I want to spend some time unpacking the transition, let's call it, or the exit, or the generational path. But before we dive into that, I have to ask this question as a speaker, let's say, as an author and a speaker, and somebody who's been there and now owns a business. What do you see as perhaps one of the most common traits of successful business owners?
Successful business owners, when they're starting their business, are immediately thinking about how to build a business that is sellable and how to exit. The business owner who blows up their wealth is the one that starts a business and then has some success and says, this is going to be my legacy. This is going to be the thing that I pass on to the next generation and the generation after that. In other words, they become blinded by pursuing their longevity. That is not what a business is. A business is there to create wealth. It is not their pet. It's not their friend. And it surely isn't something that they're going to be remembered for. Business owners underestimate just how fragile and temporary a business is. I like you. You've heard me do this in my live speeches. I like asking my audience who the founder of Coca-Cola is. Right. I can ask an audience with 1,000 people in the audience. No one knows, and no one cares. Right. That's the third most valuable consumer brand in the world, and no one can name the founder. No one cares.
I think is it Asa Chandler or Pemberton? One of the two. I can't remember who wrote the ingredient.
I know. I keep forgetting to Google it myself. So
I think it's Asa Chandler or Pemberton. I wrote a blog about that sometime years ago.
He was a pharmacist. I think it was Pemberton. I think it was the latter.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes, I think you're correct. So that's interesting that, I like the way you frame that the business is there to create wealth. One of the things I say that's somewhat contradictory or contrarian, or maybe a little bit kind of, out of right field, is that I believe that wealth can be created extremely fast in a very short period of time. And it's easier to create a lot of wealth in a short period of time than it is to create a lot of wealth over a long period of time, especially if you enter stage right business, right? Because business owners, we have this unbelievable tenacity in the startup days or in the early days when we walk into a business to drive value. But I think you just hit nail on the head that we often look at it as our baby. We look at it as a family member, and then we forget that the value there is there to create wealth. So whenever you see that whenever you're talking on stage or you're doing the research or you're talking to other business owners, what's the piece of advice that you give that individual who's perhaps gotten cloudy from the day-to-day activities, or they're spinning the plates, et cetera, and they're not paying attention to the value of their business? What piece of advice would you give that individual?
My one piece of advice is, and I see it all the time, and it's super dangerous. In fact, it's actually really cavalier and crazy. When a business owner continues to make profit and pump the profit back into their business and become their own lender and buy their own buildings and bring no leverage to their balance sheet, what they're doing is concentrating their wealth in one illiquid stock called their family business. If you're a financial advisor, you would be able to, if one of your clients said, listen, I want to sell everything and I want to buy 100% of Apple stock, and I'm 65 years old, that would be insane. It would be completely ridiculous and dangerous and ill-advised to do that. But that's what family business owners do all the time. They double down, reinvest over and over and over habitually, and concentrate their wealth in their family business. My advice, get that money out. Bring some leverage to your balance sheet. So that when you do lose a client, and you will, you'll feel it, and you should. The problem is when we under leverage our balance sheet, we don't feel the urgency to drive change and innovation in our business. That's why when business owners often get into their 60s and 70s, they coast. They lack the drive and the ambition. They lack the urgency to drive innovation because no one's calling saying, hey, you're outside your bank covenant. You need to really giddy up and go and drive some innovation. There's no urgency. It's dangerous. So I say to business owners, get that money out of that business, get it out of your equity, get it out of your retained earnings. Take it as salary, take it as dividend, take it as a bonus, get it out and properly invest that wealth in a broadly diversified, holding company or across a whole bunch of baskets of assets, so that nothing can take down your personal net worth.
So I think that leads to the question then is, why is that the norm? Why is it the norm that business owners reinvest and then stay highly illiquid, from your opinion? Why do we do that?
Because it's fun. I ran one of those businesses. We had $1 retained earnings for every $2 of sales. They're super funny and easy businesses to run. You can just, if you need a new piece of equipment, you just go out and buy it. You're not paying rent to anyone. You own the building. So you work hard. I think business owners, I think entrepreneurs, when you look at the startup mode, they're really looking for independence and freedom. It's actually more intoxicating than money, right? Entrepreneurs, if they wanted safe careers, they'd go work for the federal government with a defined pension plan. Right. The reality is they take on risk because they're pursuing independence and freedom. It's like it's rocket fuel to an entrepreneur. So is the potential of making wealth, creating wealth, but really it is the freedom and independence that comes with in reinvesting profits that really creates some real blind spots for entrepreneurs.
You know, my own career, Tom, I've started and sold 7 businesses, now exited 7 different companies, various ranges from, 5 figures to almost 9 figures now. And it's been interesting that this idea of freedom, which is exactly, you're hitting it nail on the head. My own personal belief is that, hey, I want to be a business owner so I can be free of time, free of resources, free to do whatever I want to. And before I knew it, in almost every business, until I learned scaling and exit planning, as we're going to kind of shift to, in every one of those companies, I ended up having the exact opposite. I wasn't free. I ended up being hamstrung to the business. When I tried to go on vacation, my mind was stuck in that company, or I was dealing with the cell phone. So much so, Tom, I can remember this like it broke my heart. It was that moment, one of the moments that led to like a major shift in my own ideologies, my own thinking. I was sitting with my son deer hunting in a tree stand. And as we're hunting together, I'm looking at my phone and he finally said, "Dad, there's a deer." And at that moment, I realized that I wasn't focused on anything, much less my son. In this valuable moment, that my mind was focused back on this company that now held me tight and held me lack of freedom. And in that shift, Tom, I already had training. I'd already heard you speak. I'd already read your book, which one of my favorites is Every Family Business. And we'll talk about this as well here in a second. But I'd already read this. And I can remember one of your questions in the book posed me. And I'm going, I've got to change something. And so my mind in that moment saying I'm not free shifted to this idea of how do I now create true freedom? So I want to chase that rabbit for a second. Whenever you're talking with business owners, when from the stage, et cetera, how do you help them, or what would you go about telling them that could unlock this aha moment? Almost like I have my son in the tree stand. What is that thing, or maybe a story, maybe a statistic? What unlocks it to where they say, I've got to now shift to freedom and liquidity?
Yeah, I think that thing that I would tell them is there is a lot of shame attached to exiting and selling a family business. It feels like a public acknowledgement to your family and your community and your friends that when you sold, you had to sell. There is something in our culture that says the buyer is the victor and the seller is the vanquished. The seller is the loser. We only sell businesses that are broken. We only sell businesses that we have to sell. Why would you sell a business that is profitable and growing? So notionally, business owners get locked into this. Oh, I got to keep it. Well, keep it for how long? Holy smokes. The smart money knows when to get in and when to get out. And they understand that the real money in business is made on the way out. That moment when you sell for a multiple of your free cash flow.
Right.
Right? So exit planning, estate planning, business succession planning all feels like this sad, dark day, morose day where you lose something, you become irrelevant, you sell and you become irrelevant. And I've spent almost 20 years trying to convince business owners that the sale, the exit is the high water mark of really smart, intelligent, strategic business thinkers.
But you've gone through a few exits, as you mentioned earlier, and I've gone through a few exits. And there is something to be said about this baby identification, right? To where this was our baby, this was our life. We burnt the candle for 80 hours a week. And part of this exit planning myth that I often hear from people who've gone through this is, now what? Now what? What do I do now? And I think part of one of your questions, your 12 common sense questions in your book, help to deal with that particular framework. So how do you help coach maybe your friends? I know you're not a coach or a consultant, but how would you coach somebody who's like, yeah, I don't want to sell my identity. I'm 45, dude. Tom, I'm 45. I sold my business 3 years ago, and I'm like, okay, what's next? How would you coach, or how would you educate somebody in that framework who's trying to deal with this demon or this myth that you mentioned earlier?
It is a myth. It's a misplaced myth. One of the biggest fears that entrepreneurs have is who will I be? What will I become? If an entrepreneur doesn't have another idea or interest that is bigger and more compelling and aspirational than the business they're running, FYI, they're going to stay for how long? Forever. They will die at their desk. When business owners say, who will I be, and conquer that fear, Oh my gosh. Most entrepreneurs, when they were young, they had time, but they had no money.
Yep.
I tell entrepreneurs all the time, when you're 45 or 50 or 55 or whatever, and you exit your business and you have both time and money, trust me, you will not struggle to figure out who you are. You're going
That's
to
well
have
said.
that rare commodity that most people never have that. But when someone has time and money, both things, watch what happens. I bump into entrepreneurs all the time who go, I should have sold 5 years ago.
Yep.
My phone never stops ringing. I don't even know how I don't even know. I have no time. The
Yep.
phone's ringing. I've got this opportunity. I'm teaching an MBA course. I'm doing board work. I've started 3 new companies. Like
Right.
seriously, entrepreneurs are not going to head to the couch and start playing Xbox or watching Oprah reruns, right?
Yeah.
They're entrepreneurs. One door closes, 5 more open. Trust it. Entrepreneurs, if you've built a scalable, sellable business, trust me, you're good at business. There'll be so many more opportunities. I was
Man,
45 when I had a liquidity event. Um, so I tell you, it was fantastic. The first thing that I purchased, are you ready for this? Time.
yep.
Time to think, to
Yep.
write, to make a really good decision. Because I had money in the bank. I could, for the first time in my life, take a deep breath, hit the reset button, and start something, this business of writing books and traveling and speaking. It's been the greatest 20-year gift that I ever gave myself. That and keeping one promise, never having another employee.
I, I love it.
It was the best gift of my life.
So Tom, in your book, Every Family Business, there are 12 common sense questions. And whenever I read this book, it's been, when I first read it, it's been probably 8, 9 years ago, I guess it was. I don't remember exactly when, but I came to chapter 6. It says, show me the stock, show me the plan. And when I read through, it's only just maybe 12 pages long. It's not a very long chapter. I'm looking at it right now. It starts on 61. Yeah, 20 pages long. Not a very long chapter, but the contents of that chapter literally like set me on my heels, man. Like I'm like trying to guard a huge defensive lineman and they just pushed me back. And I went, wow, I've never thought about that. So I don't want to test you on all 12 questions. And friends, I'm going to challenge you. If you can pick up the copy of this book at everyfamilybusiness.com, it's a powerful book, but chapter 6 for me, Tom, was amazing. Whenever you look and we were writing this particular book, there are 12 questions inside here. Which question did you personally struggle with more than any other?
Well, it's funny you key on chapter 6 because I think it is the key chapter because it really zeroes in on what makes the book and my message profoundly different. And that is that every business must be sold at full market value based on a third-party valuation, sold to family, sold to a key employee or group of employees, sold to a private equity fund, sold to a competitor, a strategic buyer. I don't care. I'm agnostic. When you have multiple people, family, key employees, strategic, private equity bidding for your business all at the same time, Justin, what do you think happens to the price? It goes up. What happens when you say to your kids, hey, you know what? You don't have to risk anything. All you have to do is just wait around long enough till I die and you'll get the business for free. How do you think that's going to go? It is destroying families and family businesses. They need to be sold. And then it's not about denying the next generation anything. Transition the wealth. Cash is really easy to divide among siblings, especially if you got one sibling or child in the business, one outside. It's really easy to divide cash. Dividing an operating business is landing family businesses in court. The courts are jammed. Every state is full of families in dispute over these assets. And you know who's getting wealthy?
Oh yeah, lawyers.
Yep.
Lawyers and appraisers and accountants and everybody else who are dealing with all the estate issues versus the children, which is very sad to me, especially, with most business owners, their business is their largest asset, is highly illiquid, other than maybe some retained earnings, a little bit of cash they have in the bank, but relative to the business value, it's ridiculous. So yeah, chapter 6, to me, that was a powerful chapter. And friends, for those of you who've not read this book yet, Every Family Business, again, check it out, everyfamilybusiness.com. Chapter 6 is what I took almost like a Selah moment, old Hebrew word, just pause for a second. And I went, holy cow, my kids don't want this business. They may, but more likely they're not. And I'm going to carry some high risk on this thing for the next 20, 30 years until they're eligible. And then I'm probably going to have to self-finance this, which is even greater risk. And to me, borrow is slave to the lender is an old proverb. And I just don't want to put my kids to where now they're enslaved to me and I'm having to rely on my future because of on their backs. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And then when I looked at fair market value, it's like, holy cow, we built a highly sellable business. So that chapter, Tom, I got to tell you, brother, you changed my life. And with that moment at that time, and Emily and I, my wife and I, set out to this path to say, we're going to build a highly valuable business that is transferable. Now, it took some time. We started a business in 2017, 2021, 4 years, 49 months later, we had an 8-figure exit. It was unbelievable. Created wealth in a very short period of time with that mindset that we're going to create a highly transferable business. But maybe I'm out of the norm. Maybe I'm not the normal entrepreneur, Tom. But so if you're looking at the plethora of entrepreneurs out there, what is the one mistake as they're thinking through this? Man, I got this business. I can sell it to my kids. I can sell it to somebody else. What is this one mistake that they find themselves almost coming back into that same old rut, that mindset? I think we hit on a little bit earlier, but I want to dive a little bit deeper to that one mistake these business owners are making.
The one mistake that business owners make is that their business is actually more durable and will last longer than they think it will. The reality is, of the 100 largest firms in America, largest firms, okay, in America in the year 1900, only 16 were still in business in the year 2000. That's America's largest, best funded, market share, price setters, access to great talent. 16 were standing after 4 generations. Businesses do not last. And the smart entrepreneurs understand that knowing when to get in, start, grow, scale a business is only one part of the puzzle. The actual really smart money knows when to get out, when to monetize it. And they don't get emotional. They don't confuse their passion for business with their love or emotional connection to an asset, to their business. They know how to detach and understand and always remind themselves what a business is. It is nothing more than an instrument of wealth creation that goes up in value or goes down in value. And the key is knowing when to get out while it's creating wealth and has lots of free cash flow, because whoever buys that business is going to give you a multiple of that free cash flow.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And friends, what Tom just went over, if you internalize it and you take action on what he's talking about, it will change your family dynamics. But that leads me to your third book, the one that I know that you and I, when we met each other not too long ago at a conference, you were telling me about it. I saw this big grin, almost like you have on your face right now, this big grin come on your face. And I think your third book is driving home that latter point. So talk to me about your third book and what was the precipice, or what was the inspiration for writing it, and who is it written for?
It's really written for every single business owner and who's trying to make sense of the wealth that they've created, whether it's sitting in their business or whether they've sold their business. What we know that are you sitting down for this? 137 million American adults do not have a legal will.
Oh yeah.
We know that half of all business owners in America do not have a legal will. If you don't have a legal will, you have no business exit plan. The state of Arkansas, the state of New York or California, when you die, not if, but when you die, will chop up your business according to the state formula, and they'll thrust children into business together with a surviving parent. It is literally a freak show. And the lawyers are making a ton of money. Families are destroying their wealth. So in that third book, it's called The Happy Inheritor. You can, of the same title, happyinheritor.com. Same thing is going on. The successful smart families have family meetings with their trusted advisors present, and they're talking about how these assets, family cottages, businesses, how they should transition. And they get out in front of this. They have open communication, transparent plans. They build these plans together as a family, and then they actually make decisions together collaboratively. Most people make these decisions in private, keep their will secret. That's if they have one. And then they die. And then the family finds out what the plan is. It's crazy.
Makes no sense, does it?
It literally makes no sense. And so the book offers a new approach, which is a facilitated family meeting with trusted advisors. And that's how smart families transition their wealth.
your book actually outlines exactly what my family and I do, and we have done for a while now. In fact, tomorrow, my wife and my children and I are meeting with our attorney and our CPA as a family to go over the balance sheet and talk about what if scenarios. What if Daddy gets hit by the proverbial log truck? Where does that leave my 19-year-old, my 16-year-old, my 13-year-old? And as a family, it's interesting to see, the we're teaching our children in this movement. And now I'm not in the teens, but they've been with me their whole life, right? So we've been homeschooling, they know business, they've been in the business, but we're teaching them, Tom, the way that generational wealth is created. And I almost, the way we sit around the table at Thanksgiving, our family meeting, it was like, you're getting a master's degree in business at the age of 10 in our family. I think it's
I love it.
powerful. So your book is your books are brilliant. So for those of you who are listening, I have the utmost respect for Tom because of what his writings have impacted, how they've impacted my life. And we'll put a link to all three of his books, even his book, Willing Wisdom, which is a very foundational book. I would challenge you to pick up all three of them. So, Tom, I asked this question to all my guests. And as you know, I haven't had very many guests in the 500 and whatever, how many episodes we have. But I love to, whenever I have a guest, ask this one question. And that is this. You have a family, you have children, perhaps grandchildren at this age. I'm just guessing here. What is the one piece of advice? If you could set your whole family around a table, what is the one piece of advice? Doesn't necessarily have to be about business, in life, that you would give your family?
That one piece of advice is one, gather around that table. Most people don't. The power of a family meeting is that everyone hears the same thing at the same time. That's very different than one-on-one conversations where I say maybe to one child, here's a little bit of money. Here's a loan. Don't tell your sister.
Yep.
Here's a gift. Don't tell your brother. Yep. That's the kind of crap that goes on inside families, and it destroys relationships and destroys businesses. When someone can understand the power of transparency, when we strip away the silence and the secrecy and build family governance to share family, especially money secrets, in an open way, everyone hearing the same thing at the same time, this is powerful stuff. This is how we put the litigation lawyers out of business, by creating trusting family relationships, by being honest and open with the wealth that we've created. That's how we keep wealth. Much of my books aren't about how to make more money.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs are pretty amazing at creating wealth. You know what they're terrible at doing? Keeping it. Keeping it. They keep it secret. So all of my books are really about money in motion, particularly between the generations, just to help people navigate that tricky thing. And then here's the interesting part. The reciprocity, in other words, the person with the money who is sharing, their plan with their beneficiaries, right, are typically the recipients of really good care late in life. But when they use that wealth to control family relationships between their children, relationships between themselves and their children, when they use that money in a kind of a nefarious way, they often pay the price. They often, when they lose control, cognitive capacity, often the relationships are so damaged, they don't receive the care they're hoping to get from their own children. It's heartbreaking.
Wow. Well, my guest today, friends, has been Dr. Thomas Deans. Tom, where can people learn a little bit more about you? Maybe a website we can direct them to?
Yeah, so thomaswilliamdeans.com. That's you'll find all my books there, articles, all sorts of things, how to hire me as a speaker, how I can. And I do lots of speaking in New York and LA and Chicago, but I'll tell you what I really love. I love going to places for the first time and bringing my message to smaller or medium-sized communities. I'm deeply passionate about my message. I love helping families help themselves. It's really my big message. And starting family conversations around a very awkward conversation, which is money.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, brother. It's always a pleasure. And as I want to tell you personally, thank you so much for writing, but also not only that, but the times I've been able to witness you on stage, the interactions we've had, you've impacted my life and you'll never be forgotten. I'll continue to pass your books out because, friends, I'm telling you what Dr. Deans here has put in writing as a business owner will change your lives. You need to read this context, but not only read the books, make application. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Friends, until next time, y'all go out and make it a great day.